Hello, Ed. So far, so good. We tried this out just kind of a little bit before, and it looks like it's doing well. So, glad to see you. And we'll see how it progresses. The only issue I have, maybe I can ask you point is there's going to be a cooking demonstration. I'm going to unplug the projector from the computer and carry my laptop over with my camera. Huh?
I don't think it should be an issue.
Okay, so we're gonna try that, see what happens.
All right.
We're good here. We're good here. Oh, the other thing I wanted to do, in case we play a video, is I'm gonna share the screen first. So, toggle it. And I'm going to play a video. Yes. Back up. If you go plantation.
Years. Well, for some years.
Something she was. I don't think so.
Okay, so what I did is I just turned the
He's on there with the Ed, who's helping on his end.
So I see there are a few people online. So we want to welcome you, and we're going to start the class in just a few moments. You want to see if Debby is ready?
Oh, sure.
Because we're ready. And for those of you, hopefully we've got the technology working out.
We're ready anytime you are.
Better than the last multiple times. We're getting closer. That's right. We're getting closer and closer. So this camera here. I'm gonna disconnect. Okay, so puts this on Debby. We'll be back in a moment. Debby, I'm going to put this on you so that people are not Zoom. So people in the Zoom can hear you. And Scott, I'll get you one. Oh, you got one? And the blinking has stopped.
Yeah, it was that. It has to.
Okay.
That has to be.
And so, are you just about ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Did you want to show the video first?
No, the
You're
video,
going to talk to them first.
the video will have to, so I'll get up front and say, come down.
Oh, okay.
Stay on.
Hey everybody, welcome. So tonight we're going to start in the kitchen for the first 15 minutes or so, and I'll show you how I'm going to put this cozy autumn wild rice soup together. And this is the soup that Pam, Terrell, and I experienced at the Romeo Festival in Cresswell. Do you all know about the Romeo Festival? Romeo. Now Romeo is lives at the Welcome Home Animal Sanctuary in Cresswell, and he is the tallest steer in the world, according to the, what do you call that?
Guinness Book of
Guinness Book of World Records. Yeah. So, and he's a. Pardon me? How How did we get them? I can't remember the exact story, but if you go to welcomehomeanimalsanctuary.org, you'll see all these beautiful stories of these beautiful animals who have been saved and live there. And I've worked with Romeo. Pam goes every single Wednesday morning and shovels poop and does a lot of work at the sanctuary. Loves Romeo and the other animals she's with. But so Cresswell had they're kind of famous for Romeo. And so they had a festival in the park about a month and a half ago. And the church ladies gave free soup to anybody who came. And Pam brought me a cup of the soup and it was so delicious. And it was a vegan meal, so the church women who had never cooked a vegan soup in their lives wonderfully did so for the, it was amazing. So I have one soup that's made already, so I'll show you how to put it together. We'll give you samples of the soup that's already made with Chef AJ corn muffin. Do you know Chef AJ? She's very famous in that. Scott and Charlie are going to show a little video, a 5-minute video of her making those muffins. And Elizabeth at our loan library is holding up one of her books. We have a couple of her books, and she has quite a story. She's very present on YouTube and very bright, sparkly personality. So come on back. And
So Ed, the Logitech camera doesn't seem to be working.
I'm seeing that. Did you plug it in before you started the meeting?
Yeah,
Okay. It's not showing up in the list here.
so
I don't know why.
And then. Oh my gosh. Why don't you put it go? Okay. So this soup comes from Gimme Some Oven. And Charlie and Scott will put up the website.
Just move the camera on the laptop.
But
yeah, so let's go take it over here
newsletter that we send out at the
and
beginning of each month, these recipes will be in.
I guess I can use the camera on the laptop
Just
for
to
right now.
show you, here is the maize soup, ready for sampling. And then I'm just gonna start this pot,
Gotta face it together.
just gonna heat this pot up. And so there's 7 vegetables in this soup, and there's onions and garlic. So there's a small white onion and 4 cloves of garlic. So I'll saute those first in a little bit of vegetable broth. And the recipe calls for 6 cups of vegetable broth. So this is 4 cups and this has 2 cups in it. And then the other vegetables are, you guys can see what's in here. Celery, carrots, and mushrooms. Yeah, there's. Nope, I just used a knife. Yep. So the cremini mushrooms, but you could use those white baby button mushrooms or any mushrooms you wanted. 2 medium carrots, 2 stalks of celery, and then this is a 1 pound of sweet potatoes. I think I used garnet yam because I like the orange color. They're not perfect squares, but excited for me. Yeah, but they're pretty good. And then there's a cup of wild rice. And this just happens to be some rice that our neighbors who come from Iowa brought back for us because we did some watering for their garden. So that was kind of fun. And then there's 1 bay leaf. And this came from our next door neighbor, fresh from their bush today. I was out of bay leaves and I texted her and she gave me a whole sprig with a whole bunch of them. So that's nice. And then so it's really comes together quickly. Just saute onions and garlic, and then you throw all of these things in, and then and some Old Bay seasoning. Have you guys seen Old Bay seasoning before. It does, and Elizabeth just alerted me to that fact. I didn't realize that because I was like, I'm not putting any salt in. And Old Bay seasoning is from my childhood, and she showed me there's paprika, red pepper, black pepper, but celery salt, which is salt and celery seeds. So I am sensitive to salt because I'm used to going without it, and I didn't notice. I've made this at least 4 times, and I haven't been overwhelmed by a salt taste. But now Elizabeth told me at Costco they have something like this without the salt in it, so I will be looking for that one the next time. If there's a tablespoon and a half, so it's significant, you know. It's a big pot of soup, so you'll see. I'm not exactly sure. What's that? And
Do people here like any of the flavors of Mrs. Dash?
I'm sure, is that?
No salt seasoning.
Yeah, so, yeah, I just have to, I have to figure out how to cook like that because I haven't used those spices. I just avoid salt, but obviously I did this time. Uh-huh.
What you putting in there, Debbie? What you putting in?
Okay, so now I'm putting in 1 small chopped white onion, and I'm just sauteing it in some vegetable broth. Sorry, I interrupted. I wanted to. So this is supposed to saute for about 5 minutes, and then the garlic for 2 minutes, and then everything else goes together. And at the very end, it calls for a can of coconut milk. I got the light coconut milk, and I did see somewhere that you could substitute like soy milk or something like that. But I'm doing the original recipe for now, and everybody can do, you know. Yeah, there is some saturated fat in it, so I got the light one, and it's spread out enough with the rest of the ingredients that I felt okay, and it's just to show you that you can tailor it. And then there's it says 2 handfuls of kale or some greens, so I just finally chopped up a bunch of greens, and I love greens, so I like to throw them in pretty much any soup I make, whether it calls for it or not. Usually, yeah. When I yeah, it's low in it, but
Spread out through the whole soup, so it's
yeah.
yeah, all right.
Oh, okay.
Again, right. Leaving the dragon.
Himalayan has what? No iodine. Yeah, so then you gotta check. Yeah. Anybody have a fix for the no iodine thing?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm adding the 4 cloves of chopped garlic. And and okay, so Can you get the recipe up on, with that website that I sent you?
Oh, he has it there.
Okay, okay,
Let's see.
all right, so. Use my loud voice, thank you. Okay, okay, so now I'm just really gonna throw everything in except for the greens, the coconut milk, and a little bit of pepper that we'll add at the end. And so I'll just,
And we can put the recipe up when we get back into the room.
okay, yeah. And then there's little mini Chef AJ sweet cornbread muffins. And Scott and Charlie will show you the 5-minute video of Chef AJ making those. And so that'll introduce you to Chef AJ too.
Hey, Charlie, are you holding out a button on your phone?
So anybody have
I'm
any
not.
ideas for their vegan Thanksgiving?
I'm coming back over here to play a video.
Okay.
I'm not sure why you're doing that. You
We
know,
just had, there's the first annual Youth
So-
Vegan Fest is May 4th of next year at the
I'm
fairground.
gonna toggle the
Scott Coulthard had that one.
screen
We had a
share.
planning committee meeting
See
last
if
week.
that makes a difference.
We had a
Switch
vegan
camera
Thanksgiving
button.
meal before.
Is there something on the keyboard?
Delicious. It was so much fun to, just like our potluck, feel comfortable.
Just the num lock, turn that off. I don't know why it's going in and
So
out like
this is
that.
the wild rice and those, there's 6 vegetables
So,
and wild rice and
Do I need to end this session?
so this will simmer for about 35 to 40 minutes. I'm gonna put the bay leaf in. And while it's simmering, we can go look get
It's
samples
pretty
of this.
bizarre. And for those online, probably pretty annoying.
Hey, Charlie, you are muted.
Am I unmuted yet?
Yeah, me too.
Okay, there you are.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I
Okay,
used to
so
do sometimes
in just
great
a couple minutes, Debbie should be done with throwing everything in the pot.
When I look at
And
moving,
she wanted us to play a video next.
expensive to me because you're
Um,
throwing out.
It's a Chef AJ video. And as soon as the vegetable scraps, we'll play it.
I used to do that with carrots. Yeah, juice a bunch of carrots and then put that into my soup. But I don't anymore. Yeah.
Would you like to come and have a taste of the soup? And Scott, can you
Yeah.
can you do the muffins? Yeah, curly tail.
Okay, she's gonna show us how to make sweet bread,
Yep. This
sweet
is
cornbread muffin.
obviously.
And
So that you can come, Scott. Can you put a spoon in and then give us?
in the meantime, anybody online who have any questions, any thoughts? Like, why
Um,
are
well,
we gonna
if you're shy
get
to
this
come get,
together
don't
sometime?
be shy. Don't be shy.
If it's too annoying, you can come to a Tuesday class on Zoom. Which
Hey,
is
Frank,
gonna
how are
be-
you?
we don't
Yeah, yeah,
try to do it
Good.
hybrid. Trying to do it
Yeah,
hybrid.
there's
Yes, no, it's been a
Yeah, make
challenge
sure you
for
get
us.
and a muffin. Did you get a muffin? Oh,
Oh, sure. Oh, another one.
Basically, the
Oh, I see. Okay.
in the room here
There you go.
is
more like this.
just chatting,
There you go.
chattering away. And no one's eating
Probably
anything
we should
yet,
have people just get.
so you don't have to feel like you're missing it.
Thank you. So I tried to send like a message, but there's no service. But we'll.
Right, good.
Yeah, your favorite one.
Have the computer setting.
Yeah, but it's 9:31. So that's good.
Well, I hope it's.
I'm gonna be right back in a minute. I'm gonna ask Debbie if it's time to watch the movie or what.
So we can go and sit down and have a.
The onions and
Did you do the garlic?
So Debbie, did you want us to show the movie next? So you ready to have us show the movie now or not yet?
You can do as soon as everything sits down. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you bringing some for Charlie?
Yeah, we can bring some over.
Yeah, I don't think we need.
Very good one.
Okay, we're gonna stop the share for a moment.
It's delicious, and I have a great salad with this. I just tried.
Toggle the screen.
I really,
We don't want to stop the recording. Thank you. That's awfully nice of you.
So, like, and it's so easy. Yep, to put together. Although I feel
Is there anyone in the room who has any questions about what we're doing before we play Chef AJ's video? Any thoughts from anyone? Or anything that they want to say? What is? Oh, does she? I do too.
you're not having it.
We're doing it together
I thought you didn't like.
from 1 to 5.
She's
Good luck. to her.
You like
I'm
it?
sure she'll come. Yeah. So, that, okay, we're gonna go ahead and play a video since most everybody's back here. Let's do that next.
You need
Chef
that
AJ.
brownish color? Oh, it's probably the mushrooms and the greens, maybe.
This is off.
This is.
Let's toggle back the share and let's.
Yeah.
Know this
We'll play the video. You wanna?
We're gonna play a video first and then.
because every month we have a potluck and they disappear and they're so easy to make. I like to make them in a blender because I don't have to clean a mixing bowl and a whisk. And as a matter of fact, if I wasn't demonstrating it for you, I wouldn't even have these bowls out. Everything would go in the blender. What I love about it is the blender has measurements on it, so I don't have to dirty and wash a measuring cup. So in my blender, I have my unsweetened apple juice. And then I am going to add my date syrup. I love date syrup. I can make it myself, but I don't now that you can get organic date syrup even at Walmart. But the lines on the blender make it so that I can easily see the exact amount without having to use another measuring cup. I'm only using half a cup. That's just about, I think, 2 teaspoons or so of date syrup per muffin. Then I'm going to add my unsweetened applesauce. You can buy unsweetened applesauce everywhere. And if you have a high-powered blender, you can even make it yourself. And then I have my cornmeal. I'm using a medium grind, and I always do everything gluten-free, even though I have to be gluten-free. Even before I had to, for necessity, I always did everything gluten-free, because then if there's one person that can't have it, everyone can enjoy it, and it tastes exactly the same, frankly. So I'm going to add my cornmeal to my blender and my gluten-free oats, my baking powder and baking soda. Always get aluminum free, and if you want to get sodium free, you can find that as well. And to activate the baking powder and baking soda, my apple cider vinegar. Whoops. You don't want to blend the glass. Let me tell you, I had an experience once. I was doing a demonstration in Cleveland where the president of Vitamix was watching, and the little circle on the top actually fell in the blender. I didn't know, and I blended it. That shows you how powerful high-powered blenders are. So now I'm just going to blend everything just for a few seconds. That was 5 seconds to be exact. And then I'm going to pour them in my silicone muffin pan. These things are great. I've been using them for years. They're oven safe to 450 degrees, although you'll never bake at that high temperature. And whenever you're doing oil-free baking or cooking, which is what I do, they just pop right out. And I'm going to show you that in just a second. Also, by using a blender, I don't have to use a cookie scoop or other measuring cup. I just kind of eyeball it and try to get around the same amount in every one of these. You can get these silicone muffin pans on Amazon. They range from about $14 to $19. They literally last for years, and they're so easy to clean. I have some silicone pans that I've had over 15 years. Now, you might notice these are darker than traditional cornbread. I mean, corn is yellow after all, and the reason for that is because I'm using date syrup instead of another sweetener. I just prefer to use date syrup because it's a whole food and it's something I can make in my kitchen. But if you don't like the darker color, then you can use a lighter sweetener that is translucent, like maple syrup or agave, but I really prefer to use dates, the whole fruit, nothing but the whole fruit. These aren't super sweet, which is why we can serve them with chili, but they are sweet enough that you can enjoy them after a meal as is, or sometimes my husband likes to put a fruit sweetened jam on them and toast them. So easy to make, and they don't even take very long to bake in the oven, only about 22 minutes. So you can make them in no time. Look how easy that was. And then just to get it down, I do the drop and plop, and I place them in the oven. However, I can bake these later because I already made a tray. Now, normally I'll put these on a pretty tray for serving, but since our potluck is tomorrow, I'm just going to store them in a good Tupperware. And you can see they pop out so easily as long as you let them cool. A lot of times for potlucks, I'll cut these in half because there's so many people and I don't want to make more than 2 batches. They smell really good. They're a little bit crispy on the top. I like the cornmeal so much because it has like a toothsomeness that just oats don't. I could almost just wipe these with a paper towel, but of course I will wash these, but that's how nice it is. When you don't use oil, cleanup really is a breeze. But the only piece of advice I have for you, anytime you bake anything, whether you use silicone or not, let it cool. And that's the easiest way to get it out of the pan. You can see that this is almost completely clean. So there you have it. Very easy, very delicious, very healthy, sweet cornbread muffins.
This is how I got my husband a 4-knife set for half the price.
So my wife got me this weird new kitchen.
All right, we're gonna stop the share on the screen. And we're going to open up now for some questions to see if anybody has anything that's on their mind for this session. Yes, a question back here first. Hang on for a second. Scott's gonna kind of get close to you so the people on the
Okay.
Zoom room can kind of hear what's going on also.
Oh, what's a good way to get more calcium into the diet?
Scott?
Give this feedback here. Okay. Yeah. Maybe I just talk loud.
Let's try this one.
This one did this last one, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Testing 1, 2. This one doesn't.
Okay. So first question to ask is, what is calcium? So first, this is for everybody's benefit. You know what calcium is? It's a mineral, right? And so where are minerals in the environment? In the ground, right? The dirt, soil. Okay, so calcium is a mineral in the soil, and so what kind of foods? I guess what's the first foods that come to your mind when you think of calcium? Where do you get calcium? Milk, right? Dairy. Well, that's great. Leafy greens, yes, that's exactly right. So so when I think of, always people tend to think of dairy products for calcium, when it's like the only reason that the cow has calcium in its milk is because the cow eats the grain or the grass, so it originally came from the soil. So that's why she's saying leafy greens have lots of calcium. So beans and greens are really loaded with calcium. So calcium is not a nutrient of concern really at all. If you're just eating a wide variety of whole plant foods, and of course people that are eating dairy products are getting it as well, but you can get it from the original source, which is from plants. So all plants contain calcium. So some of the highest are like Swiss chard and kale and collards and things like that. But beans and greens, you get plenty of calcium. And the other thing too, is people sometimes will focus on particular nutrients, is that the calcium requirements in the United States is 1,200 milligrams a day. But if you look at every other country in the world, it's about half that, about 600 to 700 milligrams a day. So the reason we have such high is because of the influence of the dairy industry. So, but yeah, you'll get plenty of calcium just eating a wide variety of whole plant foods. Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, could the lack of calcium in our, like I had lymphopenia and I was concerned about it. I think I'm not getting enough vitamin D. There's other ways to get besides the sunshine, but we wear sunscreen all the time and we use the sugar or something. We're not taking supplements or finding food that has nutrients in it. So like, I guess I have kind of a question, because I looked at some really popular, pretty good rated vitamin combinations, and their calcium is really low, and it's supposed to be for your bones. And so it has extra D3 and other things to help enhance the absorption. The problem is the absorption of calcium, rather than. Is this making sense? What I'm saying?
Yes.
Is it a better word?
Sure. So yeah. So osteoporosis is not a disease of calcium deficiency. It's an imbalance of calcium. It's more accurate to say. So, calcium. So by taking calcium, you don't really doesn't actually improve bone health. And so it's a matter of vitamin D is really important in that process. You need to have enough calcium, which you easily get from just eating whole plant foods in our diet. We don't actually need calcium supplements. And actually, there's studies that show that calcium supplements increase your risk of heart attack and stroke. So it causes a hypercoagulable state in the blood. So you're best off just getting your calcium from your whole plant foods. Vitamin D, when it comes to that, 2,000 units a day is what's the recommendation. And it's better to get it from the sun, but there's still some debate about vitamin D supplements and are they really? So it keeps going back and forth as far as the data on vitamin D supplements. But So it's not definitive, but we know that you have best to get it from the sun. But we live here in Oregon, we're covered up so much of the year, and we're not really getting enough sunshine. So I think it still errs on the side of taking the vitamin D supplement, especially if you have osteoporosis or osteopenia, which osteopenia means bone thinning. Osteoporosis is the full disease with lots of holes, like so to speak, holes in your bones, microscopic ones. And then, of course, we could go on about osteoporosis, things like getting weight-bearing exercise, resistance exercise, not smoking, eating more plant-based diet. All those things will help promote your bone health, not falling down, different things.
And is it correct that you believe the ideal?
So D3 is the recommended supplement that version of it.
I also heard that if you're heavier, your bone density tends to be better. But that's not healthy, but if you're just skinny, then it's not enough weight.
All right, so she's saying how, if you couldn't hear, that the people that are higher risk for osteoporosis are thinner, smaller people, because if you think about the weight, extra body weight, putting that stress on your bones because you're carrying around all that extra weight, you have less risk for osteoporosis because you have more stress on the bones are denser, and then if you, I guess also if you fall, have more padding and things like that. Whereas if you're really thin, you fall, and you're low weight, then you tend to have more frail bones, and then if you're a smoker, things like that too. Vitamin D with K, so you don't really need, so there's the K2 whole thing, so you don't really need a K2 supplement because your body converts, so you get plenty of vitamin K from plants, and then your body converts it to the K2. So there are some people that are taking K2 supplements, but Dr. Gray has videos on that.
Some vitamin C itself is K3 or K3.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but probably I wouldn't say you wouldn't need it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I got a quick story. I actually worked at the hospital when I was younger, and in radiology department, I needed to take an X-ray of somebody and have to for what spectral was, what nobody was, right? So they of course figured it out. It was actually calcium tablet that all of these people were taking in supplements thinking that they were helping, and they weren't absorbing. So that's why it's really important to know. Oftentimes, like iron, the absorption happens more with the, vitamin C or something like that. Same with the calcium, the vitamin D3 really helps the absorption. But sometimes products, if you're doing supplements, you have to really be aware of the products because they use things to try to hold it together. And those things sometimes some can't break. So it's always got to get it review.
I agree, yeah. Yeah.
That's young.
When they were talking about cooking mushrooms back in Canton, I was reminded of a question I've been hearing around for a while now. I want to check my memory on this. After eating mushrooms, but before consuming them, you're supposed to wait a pretty good long while. Right?
I think you're thinking of the when you chop garlic, and then also with cruciferous vegetables, let them rest so the enzyme can do its job. That's that. But as far as the mushrooms go, you just need to lightly cook them to kill. There's I can't remember the toxin. I can't. But you don't want to eat raw mushrooms. You only need to cook them really briefly, even in the microwave a little bit, or steam them even for a couple of minutes, and that usually kills the. Forget the name of the chemical that's on raw mushrooms.
Oh, good.
Benzene.
But it's very low.
Yeah.
Evaporates fast.
Okay. Yeah. Benzene. Yeah. Other questions, topics, comments, anything? This is the open forum, so you can ask whatever you want.
My question is, once you have osteoporosis, what can you do about that? That's two questions.
Yeah. So to review there, once you have osteoporosis, it's the same thing to prevent it. So you want to avoid smoking, you want to get your weight-bearing exercise, get your resistance exercise to put stress on the bones, get plenty of calcium from whole plant foods, get your 2,000 international units of vitamin D3, work on balance, don't fall down. Don't fall down is the number one actually, but yeah, those are all the things you can do.
So do your bones fill in after that, or do they always stay poor?
Well, yeah, there's not a lot of studies that I've seen where, you know how you can do DEXA scan, put someone on like Fosamax or Prolia or Reclast or some of these drugs, and you'll see, 2 years later, 3 years later, a slight improvement. I have seen that with my patients. Some of them, they're on those medications, and and you can see an increased bone density, but it doesn't necessarily equate to significant fracture risk reduction. So it only ends up being like about a 30% relative risk reduction taking these drugs, or if you already have osteoporosis to prevent a fracture in the hip is about 30% relative risk, and it's 30% in the back. The vertebrae is a 30% relative risk reduction, and the hip is about 10% relative risk reduction. So not significantly great. And then some of the bisphosphonates, these drugs, they can cause spontaneous fracture of the femur, jaw necrosis, things like that. So, it's kind of, I saw a pretty good paper that was published that showed, like, we're trying to figure out, well, why is that? Why is it, you'd think that if the bone density improved, wouldn't your fracture risk go down more significantly? And there's a study they did, it was just one paper, but they took bone biopsies, samples of bones for people that were on the bisphosphonate therapy versus ones that didn't, control. And they put it under a machine to do tensile strength to see what kind of weight it could bear, and actually test it for, how strong it was. And so the bone density looked better on the people that took the bisphosphonate drugs, but when they put it under the stress test, the bones broke easier on the ones that were on the bisphosphonates. Because what it messes with is, messes with Mother Nature, I guess is one way to look at it. But it's basically a balance between two different types of cells in our bones. We have osteoblasts and osteoclasts. And osteoblasts build bone, osteoclasts break bone down. And what bisphosphonates do is they inhibit osteoclasts, which you think would be a good idea, but in nature, there's a balance. And so you're tipping that balance, because we need osteoclasts to break bone down and remodel our bone. And so the thought is that it kind of affects the remodeling to such a degree that it makes the bone, actually can make it more brittle. But that's just that one study, because, there is, like I said earlier, this, 10 to 30% risk reduction in fracture with these drugs. So they don't have no benefit. It's just, maybe it's not as much as we think, and then they have side effects and risks and things associated with them. And then you had another part to that question.
Thank you for that information, first of all. Silicone, I've never used silicone in cooking. Are there any toxins in silicone that I need to know about before I love the idea of how it came out. I just worked with a lady who did the research on it. So now they have silicone that's problem free. But some of the silicone, she said she's had it for 20 years, and it's like, that might actually have some components stuff in it that actually reaches into your food. Like all the other plastics do, right? Exactly.
I know Gregor has some videos on cookware and stuff, but yeah.
So I am interested to know your best guess as to what causes osteoporosis and why you think a plant-based diet is the best solution to preventing it.
Sure. So y'all could hear that. So osteoporosis, we just have the best data we have on the cause would be looking at population studies, because we don't really know. It's probably a lot of factors, multifactorial as far as the cause. And so if you look at populations that are predominantly plant-based, like rural China, rural Africa, places where they're eating some animal products but very low, they don't have any osteoporosis. And in all these places, they don't eat any dairy products, zero dairy. So zero dairy, probably 90% plant-based, osteoporosis is basically doesn't exist. And then you go to, it seems, and again, you don't know cause and effect as far as direct causation, but then you look at countries that eat more meat, more dairy, more processed foods, all that, that's where the osteoporosis goes up. So if you can look at actually countries that eat the most dairy have the most osteoporosis. So, but that doesn't mean that dairy is the direct cause of osteoporosis. It's not that simple. But then also, whether you smoke or not, and how much physical activity you get, and all those things contribute. So, so that's the best answer we can give on that.
So I'm pretty puzzled. I don't think I understand if science knows the cause of that condition.
Yeah, we really don't. We know that there's factors that contribute to it. Smoking contributes to it, and eating, less plants, more animals. There's genetic predisposition likely because there's does tend to run in families, but again, things like diet and lifestyle run in families too. So, yeah, it's a complex question, but all we can say is, try to mimic the diet and lifestyle of the populations of people that don't tend to get osteoporosis. That's the best advice we could give. We do know these things that reduce the risk, all the things I talked about, they're not smoking, weight-bearing exercise, and calcium from plants, and getting your vitamin D and all those things.
What do you recommend for weight-bearing exercise? Generic.
Yeah, so whatever you can do, I guess, that you enjoy that puts stress on your bones. I guess just walking it's technically weight bearing, but they've talked about having some higher impacts of doing some jumping, skipping rope, things like that. But at the same time, you have to weigh that with risk of energy or risk of injury. So you don't want to injure yourself. But so playing tennis and higher impact is putting weight and stress on your bones is what we consider weight bearing. So doing swimming wouldn't be, bicycling like I've done for so many years isn't weight bearing. And so trying to do that, whatever you can find that's going to put some impact on your skeleton, on your bones, that won't cause you any injuries is the best thing. And then using those muscles, because every time you flex your muscles, it's putting stress on where those tendons and ligaments attach. And so then it puts stress on the bones, which then makes your body lay down more dense bone in that area.
If you're going to walk and you want extra stress on your bone structure, you may want to wear a weighted vest you can buy. You can do resistance kind of exercises to strengthen. If you're walking, you don't want to walk like walking your dog because your dog keeps stopping. You want to, speed up the pace and do more energy, use more energy. It'll, cause your body to think, oh man, I need stronger bones because I'm working harder here. So walking can be weight bearing if you're doing it at a pace that's above what you normally. That's my understanding.
Absolutely.
Okay, how do you think plant-based helps kidney problems?
Whatever you want me to take it.
Go ahead.
Okay, so kidneys. So we know that a lot of times nephrologists, actually just had this conversation with a patient today. The patient I saw that's been seeing nephrology, the kidney specialist, because he has chronic kidney disease. And he had heard from his nephrologist to eat a protein restricted diet, a low protein diet. That's kind of been pretty universal for a lot of the kidney specialists, because what we do know is that protein, it's harder for the kidneys to filter. It causes hyperfiltration, puts a lot of stress on the kidneys to process, because think of it, the kidneys are your filter basically, and so it's hard to filter through. Protein is more difficult. But what's actually more accurate than saying restrict protein is to restrict animal protein. So because so many people just think of protein as being meat and animal products, right? Eggs and things like that. But it's actually, what's more accurate to say is you actually want to cut down animal protein, and you can have as much plant protein as you want, because the plant protein, the kidneys just seem to filter it just fine, has no problems with it. And so I've actually had patients that, like I had one guy that he was is GFR, so glomerular filtration rate is a number we look at. And so about 80 to 90 is normal, 60 to 80 is relatively okay. But when you start going below 60, that's starting to be what we call stage 3 chronic kidney disease. And so usually when people get down to around 15, that usually means they have to go on dialysis. So that's really bad. And so I had a patient that came to see me, it's been a few years ago now, but his GFR was 18, so he was already had a referral to go see the nephrologist because he's probably gonna have to go on dialysis. And he was seeing me for like diabetes and other things too. And so he went on a whole food plant-based diet. And 6 months later, his GFR went up to 44. So from 18 to 44 in 6 months. So by the time he got to the nephrologist is like, well, what are you doing now? Good to see you. So that plant-based diet did that for him. So, and I've had many other patients that did that. Was from switching to plant protein. Well, probably not specifically, but just the fact that you're getting your protein from plants and probably just less inflammation and all the different benefits, better blood flow. It's just think of all the things that we've learned and taught about in these classes about what's the benefits probably contributed. It's not probably as simplistic as just one nutrient or protein or whatever, but that's definitely
Scott, so over the last 12 years, I've had 3 patients who've gone from stage 3 kidney disease with GFRs in the 40 to 45 range to above 60. And above 60 is considered a normal range. Even though they may still have kidney disease, it's at a very much lower stage.
Is there a certain amount of protein that's supposed to have even so it would be in vegetables? Or do we not even have to worry about that?
Well, it's 0.8 grams per kilogram is what the recommended dietary allowance is for protein, whether it's animal or plant. They don't discern between those. And so pounds per kilogram or grams per kilogram, but that's lean body mass, not your actual weight. So if you figured out what your lean body mass is, you could probably go onto a BMI chart, go to about a BMI of 19 or 20, which would be the bottom end of what's normal weight. That you could probably, that would be a pretty decent guideline to what your weight is at that BMI. And then that's what the 0.8 grams per kilogram is. But factor in that that's almost twice what you actually need. The RDA always puts it way above what you actually need to be healthy. And so it's way overstated. So most people 55 to 65 to 75 grams. Some of it's professional athlete, bodybuilder, they tend to eat more than that, but too much protein can be bad because it's toxic for the kidneys. Even, I haven't seen too many cases of plant protein overdoses that are hard on the kidneys unless they're doing like the soy protein isolates, some of the tons of plant protein powders and things like that could maybe cause some problems, but I haven't seen too much of that. But it's really getting too much protein is like Charlie's talk next week is about the magic of fiber. That's the deficiency in our diet, not protein. So yeah, so to answer your question also is I wouldn't really worry about am I getting enough protein. Basically, it's if you're getting enough calories to maintain body mass, then you're likely getting more than enough protein. So a whole food plant-based diet, 100%, you're getting about 10 to 15% of your calories from protein. And if you guys were here for my nutrition myths class, we talked about how that what's the time in your life you need the most protein? When you're a baby, right? The first 6 months of life, you double in weight. What's the ideal food for an infant the first 6 months? Breast milk, right? What's the percent of calories that are protein in human breast milk? You want to remember from that class? 6%. So a whole food plant-based diet's giving you 10 to 15% of calories from protein. An infant, human breast milk, perfectly designed for a human, it's only 6% of calories of protein. So even on a plant-based diet, you probably need twice as much protein as your really.
Plant-based diet, in order for helping with kidneys is decrease sodium content. So if you eat more processed foods, more health foods, you need a lot more sodium, and that is going to raise your blood pressure and increase spraying on their kidneys.
Other topics, questions? And next week we'll do, I think, I was just we'll see how things are going. We'll do, because it's Black Friday next Friday, so a lot of people are out of town, things like that. So we're just going to do online only next week. So has everyone in here ever done our classes online? Few people. So yeah, so it'd be a good chance to check it out. So on the livelifestylemedicine.com website, on the homepage there, you'll see click here every Friday from 7 to 8:30. And all you have to do is click that. That'll take you to the Zoom. And then if you've never done Zoom before, it'll just ask you for like a username, password, create it, and then you'll be able to get in. And if it asks for a password, it's number 1 is the password if it asks for it. But then once you've done it once, then usually you don't even have to sign in. You just click the link and it just opens it right on your computer.
All right, Scott, we have the page on
Yeah,
on
just scroll
here.
down.
So you go to the page,
livelifestylemedicine.com,
livelifestylemedicine.com, and then you scroll down.
There it is.
until-
Live Lifestyle Medicine free online Zoom class.
You
Click
see
here.
this little thing here?
Just click
Click
it.
on it.
You're already in the Zoom thing.
Yeah.
But that's all you do. And then 2 weeks from now is because Charlie's going to be gone that week, 2 weeks from tonight. And we're going to do kind of a little, like a half and half open forum. If you can't talk a little bit about cancer, I was thinking maybe just doing that one also online because I can show my PowerPoint for the cancer talk that I have, just be less clunky and stuff. As you've seen us struggle sometimes here with the technology, so doing both in person, and then after that, past the holidays, or at least that next couple weeks, and then we'll come back to doing our usual hybrid class. Oh, last class? Well, we haven't really so we haven't decided when we're going to start over again. At the YMCA, we did like a series of classes and then started over. And even when Charlie went for the last 4 years doing them online every Tuesday before, we would kind of do, well, we were kind of doing them over a whole year because we had so many different topics to go over. So in the past, we've done a lot of different things. Like when I was teaching them out at the church in Springfield, like 6 years ago, I was doing like 12-week classes, then I did like a 6-week class, and then start over so people that are coming on, midstream can kind of start over again. But so far we're just kind of playing it by ear. We can start over anytime. We're just still trying to figure out how far. But we're gonna. I guess there's no end. To answer your questions, the classes aren't ending. We're just gonna keep going. But at some point, we'll see how things go. We might get started from the beginning.
Your last class is when you have received all the information you ever wanted to know about nutrition and lifestyle, and you're just completely happy and you don't need to know anymore and come to class. There are some people who have been coming to these classes on Zoom for over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's every week and sometimes twice a week. So it depends on the reason you're coming to the class. Some of you come for the latest in information. Some of you come because you like the people who are coming and it's your tribe, and so it truly is up to you. And Scott and I have been committed to working together with others in the community now also to kind of share this information and keep our tribe going, basically.
And some people it's reinforcement, some people it's accountability, just like, okay, you kind of need to keep coming, so you kind of, okay, this is why I'm doing this, because it's easy to fall back into your own habits. And
Well, depending on where you are in your life, information can hit you at a different rate, right?
Yes.
So my question is, you had one time said something about hummus being good, and I was looking at prepared hummus in a grocery store, and it had like tahini in it, and I'm not sure what is tahini okay to have in hummus.
So different hummus has different amounts of tahini. So you look on it, and you'll say, we're used to buying the 2.5 to 3.5 grams of tahini, the fat content. But there are some that have up to
It's ground
13.
sesame seeds.
There's some that have up to 13 grams, a whole lot of tahini. So you have to look on the label if you're going to buy hummus.
Some of them have added oil too.
Yeah. So if you make your own, you can add a little, but if you want to kind of keep it in the 2.5 to 3.5 grams of fat range. So be careful when you buy hummus as to how much fat. I think the Sabra brand has a higher quantity I've seen of fat content than some of the others. About 2.5 to 3.5 grams of fat.
And is all that fat from the tahini or?
It's usually tahini, but it'll say on the ingredients list whether it's olive oil or tahini.
You tend to add a lot of salt to some of them too. So yeah, ideally you make your own, but once it's,
Not everybody
not
does.
everyone does that. I buy some. You know, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Just before COVID, I kind of tried to do a keto vegan diet, but I ate too much processed foods and I got way too much coconut oil. And I was adding coconut oil to everything because I was burning fat instead of carbs. And then when I went off of that, I lost lots of weight. I felt really good, a lot of energy. But then when I got off of it, like a few months ago, I found out I had plaque in my heart, and then my cholesterol was higher, and all these things were off. And part of it was probably the processed food, but I'm also wondering about like why would I feel so good and be so successful? Felt really healthy. My labs were actually pretty good at first, but then it was after I stopped. I'm gonna still be vegan, but and put some processed, but I cut out the oil. Anyway, I'm not sure what that. That makes sense.
So the plaque has been building up over years. That didn't happen in a month or two or a year.
Yeah.
The plaque has been ongoing from what you were eating. Yeah, because in the United States, at the age of 2 to 10 years of age, you start developing the changes of atherosclerosis in our country because of our diet. So you've been developing this over a long period of time, and you just happen to be evaluated. Coincidentally, you were saying, oh, your doctor says, hey, this is a problem potentially. And you think it's because you stopped doing the coconut oil. But really, it's not that.
No, I was thinking
It's not. Coconut oil has a lot of saturated fat, which is definitely not a healthy food choice.
Yeah. Well, so a couple different things. So you talked about keto, but plant-based keto, which another name for it's Eco-Atkins. And so what that is it's a plant-based ketogenic diet. So one thing to say about it is it's really restrictive because you're just eating tons and tons of fat. So you're eating lots of hummus and olive oil, a lot of the processed vegan stuff because it's really high in fat. But you're not eating any animal products is the difference. And so the only thing I can say, so besides being super restrictive, the only thing from a study standpoint I can say about it is they did study it for what's called all-cause mortality, which means death from any cause. I can't remember how many years the study was, if it was 3 or 5, I think it was like 5. And it actually showed decreased risk of death over a 5-year period compared to the standard American diet. So it is that's the only thing good you could say about it. It doesn't seem to increase mortality over a 5-year period, but it's super, super restrictive. But then, so it'd be better than doing a animal-based ketogenic diet because then you're really clogging up your arteries with the saturated animal fats. Even if you're doing the plant-based one, you could be getting quite a bit from the saturated coconut oil and that kind of thing. But what we do know is that a vegan diet that's highly processed increases all-cause mortality. So I think that the theme to take from that is, well, you don't want to be eating processed food, whether it's plant-based or not. So that's one thing, and then a lot of times what happens a lot on different on keto diets, whether it's plant-based keto or animal-based keto, is your numbers tend to get better because you're losing weight. And so when you lose weight, your cholesterol goes down, your blood sugars go down, your insulin levels go down. A lot of times blood pressure goes down. You can reduce your medications, even insulin for people with diabetes. And so things look better on paper because you were losing weight. But then as soon as you stop losing weight, then all those things shoot back up again. Because it's just like if you took someone and put them on chemo, we've studied this. So if you put someone on chemo and they lose a ton of weight because they're sick, right? They will lose weight, their cholesterol goes down, their blood sugars go down, everything looks good on paper, just the same as doing keto. And so the reason that your numbers look better is because you are losing weight. And so a lot of times people, if you're doing, let's say you're on just a really horrible standard American diet, you eat tons of processed food, Carl's Jr. and all this kind of stuff, and then you suddenly cut out all the processed food, cut out eating tons more vegetables. So if you're doing a really a keto diet, even if it's animal based, those are some of the changes that people tend to do. They cut out the processed food and they cut out and they eat more vegetables than they were before. And so of course they're going to feel better because of course they're going to help them lose weight too, because they just cut out a ton of calories by cutting out the processed food and they're eating more vegetables and things. And so they're actually doing better than what they were before. And so that's where a lot of times people will feel better, lose weight and things like that. But we do have the long-term studies on animal-based ketogenic diets, and actually increases all-cause mortality by 30 to 50%, and it increases heart disease mortality, death from heart attack and stroke by over 50%. And that was a big study out of Sweden that was done. So can't recommend it. Animal-based ketogenic diet at all. And then you could at least say, well, plant-based one, at least it doesn't kill you faster. It actually maybe decreases chances of death, but again, so restrictive and processed food and probably, not sustainable.
Now, I don't want you to leave the room tonight feeling down about the fact that you have calcium buildup, maybe higher cholesterol. I want you to focus your attention on the lecture on heart disease and Dr. Esselstyn's study at the Cleveland Clinic, where they unclog coronary arteries by putting people on a totally whole food plant-based diet. And focus your attention on Dean Ornish's study in California, where he did the same thing. So these were people who are end-stage heart patients. They kept having one heart attack or another bypass or another stent after another. And they were on the maximum medical therapy, and they were seeing the best cardiologists in the world. And some were told, you better get your affairs in order. You're probably not going to live the year out. They were all alive in Esselstyn's study 10 years down the road. No further heart attacks, bypasses, or stents. And how did that come about? They had serious plaque buildup, high cholesterol, other kinds of medical problems, which were essentially reversed by making a choice. Now, how did they continue on in this choice? It wasn't like the doctor said, here's what you need to do, go home and I'll see you in 2 years. He saw those people in Cleveland Clinic, Esselstyn, every 2 weeks and came in and said, what are you eating? Why are you doing this? This is what you need to do. And he did that for not a year. He did it for 5 years, every 2 weeks. So whatever it takes for you personally to stay on a program that will allow you to reverse whatever heart disease that you have developed, I'd encourage you to focus on what would work for you personally. We're all a bit different in that respect.
Oh, yes, sure.
So is there a time frame where you could find a difference in your blood report? Like, for example, you start the plant-based diet, like in 3 months, you see a difference, or you have to wait 6 months? Or...
How long did it take you? How long did it take you to drop your cholesterol, for example?
So my cholesterol, I had taken year by year, it was 240, 240, 240, right around that range, up and down within 10 points. Took 3 different statins, then could get it down to 210. Gave me diarrhea so bad I had to change my clothes at work. I took niacin. It burned my head so bad, I swore I'd rather die. So I went on a totally whole food plant-based diet. You know why? Because of my wife, not for me. I had no belief this would make any difference. We threw out or gave to our kids every meat, dairy, egg, processed food, oils, nuts and seeds except for flaxseed. We gave it to our kids. And we went out and did totally, completely nothing but whole plant food, beans and lentils and rice and oatmeal and fruit and vegetables. 30 days later, I drew my blood. My cholesterol was no longer 240. It was 148. 30 days. And then a few months later, it was down to 135. Was I excited? I was so excited that I had to jump up and down. Like, wow.
Did they do that completely change?
Yeah, and it can vary, you know, like I check mine like a year at a time, but I've had patients that, like another patient that I didn't even see me as a patient, but just started coming to our online classes. This is another doctor I worked with, said, oh, start going to these classes. And she went totally whole food plant-based, and her A1C was 14%, which is really bad, really high. And she was on insulin and multiple medications. And for her, 6 months later, her A1C was 5.5, on no more insulin, no more medication, all of the medications, she was off everything in 6 months, and went from 14 on all those medications to 5.5, which is normal, on no medication. And so it can be that dramatic, or it could take longer. And it also depends on how much change you make, and it's going to be different for everybody because everyone had their chronic diseases for different lengths of time, and there's a lot of variables.
Yeah.
You feel better.
And if you look at our diabetes lecture, Gregor has a really good video if you go to nutritionfacts.org. And within a couple weeks, people who have been diabetic for 15, 20 years are off of the insulin and medication. So it can happen very quickly.
I hear that for you, it's too expensive to go whole food plant-based.
Too expensive? Yeah. If you eat the right foods, so that if you're gonna go to vegan restaurants and buy a lot of processed vegan food, that's expensive. But if you buy your beans in bulk, your grains in bulk, like at Winco, buy produce in season, frozen vegetables, frozen fruit, it's actually really cheap. You actually save money. They've shown that. There's even a book called Vegan on $4 a Day. Is it Ellen Jaffe Jim? Is that one? I think that's the author. But anyway, showing how it's actually cheaper. You can save money by eating this way. So like that is a myth out there that eating healthy is expensive. But I mean, so you can make that case, but then you can also say, well, it still doesn't compete with like the dollar menu, drive-through, things like that. And it's like we should be asking not why the healthier foods are more expensive than the fast food, but we should be asking why is the fast food so cheap, because we subsidize it. And then what's the cost on the other side? Cost to our health and our healthcare, lost time at work because we're sick, all those kinds of things. So it has a huge cost. Those dollar menu burgers.
This price of Cabela's has on one food Sunday, you can get 10% off if you're over 55. And Sundance in South Eugene has a similar. There might be others. So that helps. And Cabela's gets bulk stuff, tons of bulk stuff.
kind of, I've worked myself up to tolerate them, but they really work on my stomach really bad. And it's one of those things, you know, certain ones aren't as bad, but and that was an aversion from the time that I just like, you know, didn't want to use any way.
Yeah, so beans, because they're the highest in fiber, so, you know, it's like the book, one of the books back there, Fiber Fueled by Dr. Willoughby Bolsowitz, gastroenterologist. So he, yeah, there it is, Debbie's older in the back. So he, kind of the irony is he's a gastroenterologist, is that people that have the hardest time tolerating high fiber foods are the people that need it the most, because they have an injured gut. And so lentils tend to be a little bit, if you're not a bean eater right now, you know, starting with lentils is always good because they're a little bit easier to tolerate. Black beans, yeah. So usually kidney beans are worse for a lot of people. Yeah. Yeah. So you can try all the different kinds there's so many kinds of beans, and so you can try to find the ones that you tolerate best. But also, yeah, if you're not used to eating a lot of beans, then you want to start slow and just slowly increase the servings to build up your tolerance to them, because you'll start acquiring the gut flora that are good at digesting them. And then there's ways to cook them. You soak them overnight prior, and there's some other things. Did you have something to add, Debbie?
If you want to wander back while we're still having the discussion open forum, there is a new pot of soup that's ready. If you want more, you can just bring your cups and get another month or two if you want.
More food if you want.
What's that? Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Gundry that's always talking about
Yeah.
lectins. So like I kind of believed him, because and so when I like use the pressure cooker and get the skin softer, and they say don't eat raw tomatoes because of the skins, and then that's why the stewed tomatoes without
Oh yeah.
better. Is that a truth? Is that, I know it's commercially.
Yeah, so because the lectins are destroyed when you cook beans, and so you always want to cook beans enough to where you can smash them with your tongue to the roof of your mouth. That's usually a sign it's cooked properly. And then yeah, Gundry, he sells the lectin blockers and all that. And watch Dr. Greger's video on it. You like the very first reference in his book was like it didn't say what he said it said. It's like he checked the reference. It's like, here's the study, and he said eggs don't raise your cholesterol is what he said in his book. And then he had a study he cited for that. But when you go to that study, it actually showed the opposite. Eggs do raise your cholesterol. So it's like, based on his first reference that he cited in his book, he already lost all credibility for Dr. Greger. He's like, I don't need to see more. And then all the lectin blockers, and he's just trying to make money.
But then I was wondering if that's what causes the gases to escape.
Not sure.
I'm not sure either.
You soak them overnight.
Yeah.
You empty the water, put fresh water in again. I think that
Is that part of because of the nightshade thing, because of the lectins and all that? And, yeah.
Dr. Greger has a good video on most of the studies show that gas or discomfort can clear for the vast majority of people pretty quickly over a several month period of time. And like Scott said, Bolsheviks, the book Fiber Fuel, is a good one to look at and study. Follow.
Yeah, especially if you have a lot of food intolerances.
So you have muscle recognition where you do the same thing over and over again, and then your body doesn't actually work. It works really efficiently, which means then you're not really burning calories. You're really not burning. You're not building up one stuff. Can you actually do that with food recognition too? Is that such a thing where if you're doing the same thing? I mean, I know that a lot of cultures have the same diet. You know, we go to Hawaii, the local beef, rice, and so big, and you know, and it's the same thing over rice for everyone. Growing up, I had a little bit more variety stuff, but I know in
vegetarian diet, you need a lot of variety of your vegetables in order to get those 14 different amino acids to make them. You know.
That's actually not true. No, yeah, that was dispelled many years ago. So only plants have all the essential amino acids. The only food that doesn't have all of its essential amino acids is gelatin, which is made from an animal. And egg whites you would have a hard time getting all your amino acids if all you ate was egg whites. And so, yeah, all plant foods, and you're right as far as, they all have different amounts of all the essential amino acids, but just by eating a variety, it's always good to eat a variety because we have something like our human body is very resilient. We can live on 1 or 2 foods and survive. But like Dr. Furman always says, it's, you want optimal nutrition. We have the science, and we know a lot about nutrition now. We need to optimize nutrition. So that's why we always talk about eating the colors of the rainbow, just because the variety is good, and you want to have optimal health. You want to eat a wide variety of whole plant foods. And Dr. Will B, also the same one, he recommends 30 different plants per week just for that gut microbiome, that biodiversity in your gut microbiome. So yeah, just eat a wide variety of foods just because it's tasty and you can keeps you, it doesn't get boring that way. But some people, I could probably live on, I could eat just rice bowls with vegetables and just eat that every day, and I wouldn't be picky, but I try not to do that. You want to get more soup? Otherwise,
But I've heard that oftentimes you can go on allergies because there's food that isn't really different places that it doesn't necessarily but if you do more like local and stuff,
I think there may be some advantage, but in terms of your overall health, whether you're eating it locally or whether it may be a little bit more spoiled if it has a long transport time, but all in all, I think you could be healthy just continuing to eat a variety of foods wherever they're grown.
Back to the bone issue.
Yeah.
You said that osteopenia was the thinning
correct.
of the bone versus the pitting.
Or just think of it as looks like Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
Osteoporosis looks like Swiss cheese, whereas the osteopenia is just kind of the thinning of the bone. It's not really big holes like osteoporosis. Well, it's same. Actually, a lot of when you do a bone DEXA scan, they'll usually show a FRAX score, and so it's kind of like whether you're osteopenia or osteoporosis for treatment recommendations doesn't matter a whole lot because they'll give you this 10-year FRAX score, and if it's above, is it 1.5 or 2 or something like that, then they recommend going on the bisphosphonates I was talking about. So I have patients that have a higher FRAX score. It's recommended to be on a bisphosphonate, even though there's osteopenia, osteoporosis. And then there's people but usually, pretty much anyone that's osteoporosis probably has a FRAX score that's high enough to say you should be on a bisphosphonate. But it's just a recommendation that's up to between you and the patient to decide. Generally, osteopenia precedes osteoporosis. So
How do you stop that from
just all the exact things we talked about. Yeah. And if you want, and if you want more on that, we have a whole class that's dedicated to osteoporosis. So you can go back in the class archives. You can go back to last year, 2023. There was a whole class you can watch. It's recorded on osteoporosis on the.
So there's some people out there that have a exercise regime where they have the pushing, using weight, basically weight resistance. I was wondering how effective is that?
So for your bones or just for in general? Yeah, so like what is it? Orange theory, or is it something else? Or like a circuit where you're doing or So it'd be good anytime you're putting stress on your muscles and your bones, that would be good. Oh yeah, I think it'd be good, as long as you don't get injured. That's all I can say on it.
So you probably have like a tree where it actually grows from the center over the years and stuff. So if you were to actually just go in for your giant after health lotion with some that powder in it, you get denser and thicker. And I'm like, that's still having a concept.
Well, over time, so when you're growing, you have your growth plates that are open. And so that's where your bones are going to lengthen, essentially. But then the circumference also increases over time. And it's just all that balance of you need osteoclasts and osteoblasts to be able to remodel bone. And so when you break your arm or something, that's what's happening is your osteoclasts and blasts are rebuilding the bone. Because it's soft, really. I mean, it has a really good blood supply. It's kind of spongy. It's like when we hold a skeleton or whatever. It's hard, but when you're actually, even though it's dense, if you're actually feeling a bone, like if you're operating on someone and you have your hand on the bone, it feels softer because it's very vascular. But it's still strong. Yeah, it is alive. That's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
I like the way that you approach it. It isn't just your book, but it's also your life. And so the exercise stuff. I was with the kids when I was homeschooling to university to gather. And I said, okay, so what's the big difference between a young person's body and an old person's body when you look at it? So, well, one of them is like the fat it's separated when you're younger, but when you get older, it starts intertwining. That was one of the things that I had actually said, well, what do you think we could do as we get older that would really like help in life? And he was saying that the weight bearing, because even if your bones get weak and stuff, you have that muscle around them, protecting them and being stronger than you can use your muscle more than exposing that bone.
Right. And keeping your muscle mass is really the key because there's the sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle as you age, but then a lot of times people their weight might be lower and they think they lose weight on GLP-1s or however they lose weight. They've lost some fat, but they've also lost muscle mass, and that's really detrimental, both from a physiologic state and from a metabolic state. So muscle is very, metabolically beneficial. Because muscle can take in blood sugar without having to use insulin. It doesn't take as much insulin, and it's good for your bones, and just you want to keep that as much muscle as you can. So that's why doing your resistance exercise is so important.
When you get older, as you get older, when you reach that point,
Well, you do lose strength over time, but you can maintain it. I mean, they've shown that people in their 90s can still build muscle if you're putting a load on it, using it, you can still build muscle. So as long as you're getting enough calories, you're building and you're doing your resistance exercise, you can still build muscle no matter what age you are. But it is, if you don't work, you have to work harder at it the older you get.
I don't see Debbie here, but we want to thank her.
I think
Where did Debbie leave?
No.
Oh, of course.
Oh, there she is. Debbie, we wanted to thank you. Okay. And we're online next week, and then what about the weekend after that?
You and I will try to make sure it works with you not there.
Oh, okay, great.
But I can do online in 2 weeks also. Thank you.
He's very consistent.
Yeah, every week.
Every week. We are so lucky,
Yeah. make my granddaughter stuff when she gets to that one. I got a 13-month-old granddaughter. Yeah.